UFC 324 happened last night, and it changed everything in ways that we did not see coming. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. This is MMA 365, the newest and greatest UFC YouTube channel, so be sure to subscribe for more MMA content, especially because Jon Jones is currently dancing for Shamil Gaziyev's amusement, and for every new subscriber, Jon Jones will dance for one more song. Thank you. Let's start by looking at the main card. Justin Gaethje won despite being a 2-1 underdog in the betting odds, and this is something that I personally predicted. But even though it went to decision, I felt Gaethje easily won at least 3 rounds, and I gave him 4 rounds when I was watching it. And I know Paddy fought with a lot of heart, but I simply don't know what his game plan was. I didn't understand. He only attempted, I think, 2 takedowns for the entire 5 rounds, and that's where I thought Paddy had the biggest advantage, was in his jiu-jitsu, his ability to secure a submission, but instead he opted to swing and bang with Justin Gaethje, even though he's at a clear disadvantage in the striking department. So people are giving Paddy a lot of credit for fighting with heart and having a good chin, and I do like him, but I simply don't think this was a winning strategy, and I think the better fighter won. Now, that being said, watching this fight, I couldn't help but think that Ilia Topuria or Arman Tsarukyan would beat either of these guys, and I don't think Ilia or Arman would really struggle. Justin won, but he looked very sloppy at times when he was boxing. He left his head exposed. He was kind of swinging for the fences, and obviously Justin outboxed Paddy, so all I could think was Ilia Topuria would knock out either of these guys probably inside 2 rounds. But we'll have to wait and see about that. Gaethje called out Ilia for the White House card on July 4th, and while I think the timing lines up, I still hope, and perhaps this is irrational, but I do hope we get to see Ilia fight Arman as soon as Ilia is ready to go, ideally in April. It's pretty clear to me that these are the 2 best lightweights in the division, and Arman fought in December and took very little damage in his fight against Dan Hooker. He won convincingly, and obviously Ilia hasn't fought in several months. Last time he did fight was against Charles Oliveira, and he also took hardly any damage, but he's in the midst of a custody battle. That is important, but I do hope we can get that fight as soon as possible because I think it would be a banger. And Sean O'Malley won in the co-main event, and most importantly, he walked out to Superstar again, as he should. He beat Song Yadong, and in the moment, I thought Song won the fight 29-28, but I do recognize that round 1 was pretty 50-50, and I thought it was pretty apparent that Song Yadong won round 2 and Sean O'Malley won round 3. What surprised me the most was in round 2, Song Yadong was doing a ton of damage to Sean's knees, but he seemed pretty unfazed by it in the 3rd round. He was still striking really smoothly, and perhaps that's Joe Rogan overemphasizing the calf kicks. Maybe that swayed my judgment a little bit. But while I'm glad to see Sean win, I still thought that this wasn't his best performance. So looking forward, I mean, he could rematch Petr Yan fairly soon once Yan gets a rematch against Merab. But I don't know if Sean has exactly leveled up his game in the way that many people were hoping for. Waldo Cortez Acosta and Natalia Silva both won. I really don't have too much to say about either fight. I know Cortez Acosta technically got a knockout, but Derek Lewis kind of knocked out himself. He fell over and put up no resistance and let Cortez Acosta punch him in the face a bunch of times. I have no idea what happened to Derek Lewis. I thought maybe he injured something in his leg, but you would think then that he would tap out prior to taking a bunch of punches to the face. So I don't know what to make of that fight, but it certainly happened. And opening up the main card, Arnold Allen and John Silva put on a striking clinic. It was a sick fight. I did think John Silva won, although one of the judges gave him a 30-27, and I thought Silva had only won 2 rounds. But this fight was a lot of fun, and I came out of it even higher on both of these guys than I did before. John Silva started emoting at the end. He literally jumped off of Arnold Allen's neck. He's like John Silva is Mario, and he's trying to crush a Goomba. I like the personality, although I did feel like John Silva was perhaps emoting a little too much instead of trying to fight. But both of these guys put on a really good show, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next. And looking at the prelims, Umar Nurmagomedov got a pretty easy win against Davison Figueiredo. Figgy looked largely outclassed except for about 15 seconds at the end of round 2. That being said, Umar didn't exactly win in a completely dominating highlight fashion. So the top of bantamweight is very crowded, and after today, it's kind of looking like the question is whether Umar or Sean O'Malley will get the next title fight after Petr Yan and Merab Dvalishvili rematch, and neither of them really put up a highlight reel or complete outclassing, so that'll be something for the UFC to sort out. Next fight, Ateba Gauthier did win, but I came out of this fight with a ton of respect for Andrei Pulaev. He had a really good game plan of just moving backwards, but sort of wiggling around and staying upright. He kind of looked like the inflatable Carman tube at times, but it worked in that it got him to a decision. And when this fight was, it was minus 1,200 to not go inside the distance, and Ateba Gauthier was a minus 1,000 favorite. But Andrei Pulaev put up a good fight, and I actually thought that he might have won the fight in the moment, but he didn't on the scorecards. And yeah, this was something that was unexpected. Ateba Gauthier is supposed to be a knockout machine, and he did flash a bunch of power, but Pulaev took his shots, and Gauthier didn't really show too much more in his skill set outside of having serious hands. This was another upset, at least in the odds. Nikita Krylov knocked out Modestas Bukauskas, and Krylov was winning the entire fight, but he did land a flurry of punches and shots to get a buzzer-beating knockout, which, good for him, because with the UFC's new rules, he now gets $25,000 extra to go home with. But Krylov was an underdog because he'd been knocked out in his last 2 fights, while Bukauskas has knockout power, but he couldn't land any major shots during this fight to really do damage to Krylov. He kind of looked like he was holding back most of the time, while Krylov was on the attack, throwing a bunch of leg kicks, and eventually Krylov was able to punish him. So Nikita Krylov showed that he's still got it, and he'll be hanging around in the rankings for at least one more fight. And the opening fight on the prelims, Alex Perez knocked out Charles Johnson. He wobbled him pretty bad early on, and Johnson was kind of stumbling around the octagon for a while. And then Perez landed one more shot, and Johnson didn't go unconscious, but he was completely out of sorts, dazed and confused. So the referee called the fight, which Charles Johnson did not notice. So to me, that was a very good stoppage. But as a fan, it feels kind of underwhelming because Alex Perez did miss weight and did have to forfeit 25% of his purse, while Charles Johnson is longtime gatekeeper, but he does have a win over Joshua Van back when Van was a contender. So there could have been potential for a rematch, but as of right now, it's looking very unlikely. Thank you for watching, and be sure to subscribe, especially because we need to keep Jon Jones dancing for as long as possible. Thank you.